Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Martine Durier-Kopp and I'm the Acting Vice President, Academic and Research at NSCAD University. And it is my great pleasure to welcome you to our second session of the exciting spring seminar series hosted by NSCAD's Creative Entrepreneurship Lab. I'm going to start with a territorial acknowledgement. NSCAD is in Mi'kma'ki on the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq Nation. This territory is covered by the treaties of peace and friendship, which Mi'kmaq and Wolastoqiyik Maliseet peoples first signed with the British Crown in 1725. The treaties did not deal with surrender of lands and resources, but in fact recognized Mi'kmaq and Wolastoqiyik Maliseet title and established the rules for what was to be an ongoing relationship between nations. So again, a very warm welcome. We have a huge crowd today, approaching 100 participants and growing. We're delighted to welcome returning and new participants, and so pleased to see such a level of interest in NSCAD's Creative Entrepreneurship Lab. So we know that when starting a creative enterprise, you have to wear many hats, from maker to marketer. And the Creative Entrepreneurship Lab is dedicated to giving students, alumni, and other creative entrepreneurs the skills to do exactly that. So we hope that you will enjoy today's conversation in this session and hopefully take away some nuggets of wisdom and continue to support us in the CEL as we grow and develop. And this is just a taste of what the CEL has to offer. Through workshops, coaching, mentorship programs, and more, we can't wait to support you in your growth as a creative entrepreneur and growing your brand and business. So today, we're so pleased to welcome two very, very special guests, Anne-Marie Bilodeau and Michael Branchflower. And on that note, I'm going to hand it over to the director of the lab, Gregory Nazaire. Over to you, Greg.
Thank you very much, Martine, and good afternoon, everyone. So today we're going to explore the digital marketing and being very active online. So this is the second session we have for Creative Entrepreneurship Lab. It's how do we foster that environment? How do we foster a particular ecosystem where our creative mind can actually thrive? So the creative industry, as we know already, it's very, very large. It's about 2.5 trillion US dollars. So which is basically a very large industry that hires around 30 million people around the world. So it's growing. We know that it's growing, and it's very, very, very diverse. So if we take, let's say, this context and to realize the amount of the number of opportunities we have out there, and to see how we can actually connect to this particular segment would like to sell or to commercialize our service to. So can you move a bit, please? Next slide. Yes. So how we can, like we can see, performing art companies, it's around 92% profitable, with an average revenues of $123,900, right? So if you take us or someone, let's say two partners for art companies or independent artists or creative writers, you still can make a good living, a very decent living, by being a creative entrepreneur, by being an artist who would like basically to have some sort of financial freedom. Can you move? Next slides, please. So if we take a look at the creative industry, from that $3.5 trillion Canadian dollars, Ontario come on top in Canada with $12.2 billion, Quebec with 12 billion, and British Columbia with 4 billion. For Ontario, it's way ahead, let's say, industries such as mining. So the opportunities are there. Move to the next slide, please. So the best, if we take a look at the creative industry. One thing we should realize is the resilience. The resilience. Right now, we know that we have a pandemic. We have almost, I would say, a crisis. It's a global one. But however, what do we see? According to Monkey Survey and Yahoo, Shopify, and Amazon, the best-selling product online for 2020, you have athleisure, jewelry, water bottle, design that has some, features, garments for pets, and non-tech related car accessories. What does it tell you? Everything we have right now has to do with creativity, with design. So the opportunities are there. They are out there, and it's tremendous. So how do we connect? How do we connect to the actual market? So this is what we're gonna basically explore today with our two guests, Anne-Mathilde Bilodeau and Michael Branchflower. Anne-Mathilde is a digital strategist and e-commerce expert out of Montreal, and Michael Branchflower, Vice President for Sales and Strategic Marketing for Nova Scotia Business Incorporated. Welcome, everyone, and it's a pleasure that you were able to join us today. Anne, would you like to start, Michael? We can start with Michael.
Yes, Greg, I introduced myself, so a pleasure to be invited to this forum. And I think how we're going to work this afternoon, Anne's got a presentation which we're going to go through, and I've got some commentary around experiences. But to give you some background on myself, I've been in the marketing space globally for the last 30 years. And really, to me, marketing, product, creativity is all about attaching the minds and the hearts together. That's how you connect with people. In our current work at Nova Scotia Business Inc., when we take companies to market and we take creative industries to market, we've always done that in a physical world. And so this pandemic has taught us how we've had to do that in a digital world. And we'll talk about some of those experiences. So that's a little bit about me. Anne, did you want to talk about yourself?
Anne?
Oh, yeah, I do. Hello, everyone. It's so strange not to see anyone, but I hope we can still have some good conversations during this webinar. Greg, I was just wondering if maybe we could put on the presentation, actually.
Sure.
Okay, so my name is Anne-Mathilde Bilodeau. I'm from Montreal. I'm in Montreal right now. So glad we can do this virtually. I'm Canadian and I studied abroad in Europe. And so I lived there for 8 years. And I've been working basically for big luxury companies, cosmetics, fashion, within marketing for over 10 years. And when I decided to branch out of the corporate world, I really wanted to start my own business. I've been passionate about art and design since I was a child, and I started a company. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my path. Whoever's doing the slides, could we please move to the next one? Next slide. So just to give you an idea, these are the countries where I lived and worked. So I'm also specializing in intercultural marketing and intercultural management. And I find that I encourage every one of you to seek the world and travel as much as you can. I know it's difficult right now, but this is the beauty of online, is that you can connect with people all over the world today. And I think that is a really rich experience to have. These are some of the groups and companies that I worked for, mainly luxury, fashion, cosmetics. Just gives you an idea of the types of brand that I've been working with. When I started my company a couple of years back here in Montreal, I really wanted to create a design company, and I wanted to connect with the design industry here in Montreal. So we were seeking to fulfill the need that people wanted to decorate their homes. And we thought, well, there's so many talented creatives out there. Can't we work with them and provide them with a nice product that they will use to decorate their homes? And so came to the company oppositewall.com, which is still going strong today. And the idea here is that we have created kind of a modern poster shop where we curate and work with different creatives to offer all kinds of different artistic expressions, from photography to illustration to graphic design to collage, basically following the trends within the decor and the design world and working with creatives closely. And why I'm showing you this is I'm showing you the types of collaborations that companies can have with creatives, and also how it's possible to market artistic product or a product that is influenced by creative practices. Last year, I took on a new journey. I started to work with consulting as an independent consultant, and I was traveling in Europe when the pandemic started to hit, but it hadn't quite spread all over the world. So I was traveling, and this is just to show you where I've been. I've been to Europe, and then I went to Thailand and the Philippines, and then the pandemic was really closing in, and I was in Japan, and I ended up choosing to stay there, and missed my flight back to Canada during spring, and I decided to settle down in a craft village in Japan. I had read a lot about ceramics. I was really interested in it, and I wanted to get closer to the community and find out how life was in those communities. And I found a village that had a school where I could learn how to do pottery. So I went to that school. And in the meantime, I'll tell you a little bit about it. In the meantime, I also worked with Résidence, Éditions, which is an organization and a media based out of Montreal, who basically want to connect humans to humans within the art world. And I worked on a few productions while I was traveling. So in Copenhagen and in Japan, I did some interviews with some visual artists, some gallerists. And this is just to show you how it's possible to beautifully curate content and connect with people around the world, even during pandemic. The photo shoot here on the right-hand side in the bottom was done actually with an iPhone, because the photographer was in Copenhagen, I was in Japan, south of Japan, and the artist was based in Tokyo. And we managed to pull out some content, and we're really proud of it, because it was really just different. And so pandemic, not pandemic, there's always a way to connect and create a beautiful content and share our stories on the internet. This is the village where I ended up living for 3 months. I was basically, it's called Bizen. It's one of the 6 ancient guilds of Japan. They've been doing pottery for over 1,000 years. And I took up an introduction course, which turned out to be more than an intro course, turned out to be more like a 3 or 4 month stay, since I couldn't leave the country, but I really enjoyed my time there. And while I was there, I connected with well, not all of them, but there's 300 potters in that village. And I just experienced the way of life and visited a lot of gallerists, a lot of artists, educators, people working with these galleries and these artists. And it was a very, very rich experience for me. What is coming out of that? Well, I came back here and I'm still working in the creative sector. And while I was there, I co-designed a ceramics line for Sake with some of the artists there. And the idea is that it provides work for a whole bunch of the community there. They've been really hit by the pandemic because a lot of the artists there also rely on tourism. And right now the borders are closed, just like they are here for Canadian artists. So this is going to be launched this summer. So we're here to talk about digital marketing. I think digital marketing isn't just a strategy, it's really an opportunity for every one of us. So I don't know what you see there. I got creative and used my tablet and my pen and decided to draw a little house for you. This could be basically anything. But we're basically, what the message I wanted to say is that we are all gallerists. We are all our own gallerists. And now with digital media and the internet, we all have the opportunity to have that home and to create that space, whatever that is, and to invite people in. For example, this is a gallery that I made. And yeah, I've decided the colors, I decided the environment, and I decided the tone. I hope you like it. So one of the questions that I always try to ask myself and I try to ask people is, why? Why are you an artist? Why is it important for you to do what you do? Why is it interesting for others? Why is it important to share your work? Why are we here? And the same question applies to why should you become a digital marketing expert? One of the reasons is that it's a fantastic opportunity to share your vision. We all have a voice, you have one, and this is a great way to be heard. And you can just go ahead and do it. You don't have to go through a third party. And best of all, you can choose the tone, the color, the volume, the message, and you can create a sort of a tiny little gallery of your dreams, just the way you would like to have it. I know the format is kind of 2D and it's often on a phone, but still there's ways to be creative now with all the apps that are out there in the video world. Interaction is conversation. It might seem superficial, you get a lot of likes and you're like, oh, this is so superficial. But in the end, sometimes you interact with people and you exchange messages, and people would have never discovered you if it hadn't been for Instagram, for example. It's great to get to know your audience so you can get direct feedback. Yeah, it's an amazing opportunity. Another reason why you should try to get interested in marketing is to increase your visibility. We all know network is important, but what's really interesting here is that you can leverage other people's network, because social media is a collective media. You're not alone in this. And actually it takes everyone to leverage everyone. If you're just alone and you don't interact with anybody, you might as well not have an account. You can also meet artists from around the world. Boundaries are no issue when it comes to social media and the internet. And you can discover opportunities. For example, I was in Japan and I sought out a village, and through Facebook, I discovered a school. I contacted them. They told me I could come and I went there. I would have never, ever discovered that if I had just gone through a regular tourist office, for example. You can discover residencies, call for artists, and all kinds of new art organizations and medias that are growing all over the world that are interested in exchanging with people from other cultures and other mediums. And I guess most importantly, what a lot of people wonder is, can I make a living with digital marketing? Yes, it's possible to make a living. There is always going to be your professional and your personal practice, and some people like to keep them separate, and that's absolutely fine. Ask yourself what you want to do with your life. Maybe you don't know yet, but then experiment and go for it. But you will always have your professional artist practice going on parallel. But you're allowed to promote your work, and you're allowed to be contacted directly by collectors, collaborators, people who are starting up new projects. And by being there, you're inviting them to contact you. You know, content marketing is very expensive. Companies pay a lot of money to have people to create content for them. The good news is that it's not so difficult for you because you're creative and you're resourceful. So that's free for you. And that's a great asset. And potentially you could even develop a revenue streams. Some artists manage to sell directly on Instagram, and others get also special individual commission offers through social media. I'm not saying it's the only way, and it should not be the only way. I'm just saying it's a great window of opportunity to also interact and potentially gain some extra revenue stream while you're starting out. So I can't see anyone, but I'm just wondering if there are any questions before I continue, maybe in the chat, if you're up for it.
Yes, I think we can proceed.
Okay.
So let's go. Michael?
Yes.
So I like to say when Greg contacted me, he was like, people want to know where should they begin? And I think it's a really interesting question. It's really difficult to know where to begin. There are so many things, but I like to think about it as the web is one big intergalactic universe. If you look at it, it looks really messy, and it is kind of messy because you're there in the middle and you've got all these constituencies and all these actors playing out in the art world. and you think, oh, how am I going to ever, pull all of this together? But that's the whole point, is that if you connect with all of them, suddenly you're leveraging your network and your visibility. Every time you do something, always try to connect with someone or something, because it's all going to come back to you. Try to keep the flow. You want people to navigate through your social media or your webpage like they're walking through a store. They're coming in, they're going out, and they're going to come back. And you want to invite them in, and you want to invite others in, and you want to help others to invite you in. So it's really kind of it's a big web. So tips on where to begin. One thing that's really important is to just discover your own voice. And you can start by asking yourself, who am I? What do I want? Where am I? How do I work? Why am I doing this? And try to write it down and keep it and return to it when you're confused or you have to take an important decision. Then bring out the memo and look at it. Why are you here in the first place? And that often helps you to take the right decision. And think about who you're talking to, your audience. There are many different types of audiences. Who would you like to communicate with? You can actually choose. Where do you think they are, and what do you want from them? It's very personal. Different people want different things. And if you don't know, then you can start asking questions, investigate, talk to people, ask questions, survey them, ask them questions on stories. And then when you think you know kind of who you're talking to, then it gets much easier to decide on which social media you actually want to put your efforts in. It's difficult to attack everything at once. And remember that behind every account is actually a human. So try to treat inquiries from anyone who contacts you like it would be a person that would be knocking on your door, knocking on the door of your shop or your gallery, and you'll welcome them in. I would definitely recommend having an Instagram account. A lot is happening there, and it's a great source of inspiration and interaction for many artists around the world. Building your digital profile. One little trick that a lot of people don't think about is to update your bio across all your platforms and make your bio relevant. Make it easy for people to contact you. Write in your email directly if you have to. Beware of the contact forms. Anything that it's kind of like if you come to the shop and it says, I'll be right back in 45 minutes, maybe people will leave. Or if the door is locked and you can't get in. The easier you make it for people, the more chances they're going to write to you. Start to tell your story. Whatever story you want to tell, it's yours, and it's yours to tell, and it's powerful. An important thing also is to show that you care. So by staying active, for example, keeping your content fresh and relevant shows that you care. No one wants to come in a store where there's dust and nothing has been moved for a year. Grow your direct audience. And one thing I really tell all my clients is to start collecting emails today. Social media is great, but let's face it, it belongs to big corporations, and it's their audience. It's your audience and it's their audience. So why not try to bring people to visit your store on your website and collecting their emails or their contact information, so that in the future, no matter what happens, you'll still have a connection with these people who are interested in your work. It's a way to stay independent. Email marketing is the cheapest way to do marketing. Museums use it, galleries use it, universities use it, and there's a reason for that. It's because you have a direct access to someone's inbox, and you don't have to go through publicity. You don't have to go through anything. Email is basically, so far, free. So try to use that. Think of yourself as a brand. I know it sounds kind of harsh to say that, but you are a brand. You have an appearance and people have an impression of you. So try to curate it. Curate your brand the way you would curate a show that you're making with your colleagues. Content is important, and like I said earlier, should be relatively easy for you, so use it. You've got a great asset that a lot of people don't have, so take advantage of it. One good tip is to really become a pro at photographing your art, and there are quite a few tutorials online you can find on YouTube to the best tips and tricks to gear your phone so you take the very best pictures. And last thing that I say is try to set some goals for the next 3 months and the next year, and write them down and see if you can't reach them. That'd be fun. If you have an online gallery or website, one good question you can ask yourself is, do you want your site to be informational? Do you want to have information? You just want to have it to be kind of like a one-way direction? Do you want to have a conversation, or do you want to have a transactional website where people can purchase your work? I don't recommend spending too much time and money on building a website unless you're really crazy about it and that's your thing. And for you, it's like being creative and you're really enjoying it. Because the truth is there are a lot of really, really beautiful platforms out there that can be mounted in a click. And instead of spending time on that and money on that, you could just be spending time on creating your art and creating content. Research marketplaces and see if you want to be there. Marketplaces could be, if you're working within craft, it could be different craft marketplaces. If you're working with art, it could be different art marketplaces, and visit them and see, do I want to be there? Could I imagine myself being there? Make sure your webpage has a meta description, which is what appears when you research your website online. If you don't have any text, it doesn't look like it's professional. Be transparent with your prices. That shows integrity. Document your artwork. If you're selling it online, write something about it. It's really important. You can just keep it factual, but I think it creates a lot of value. People want to know what it's all about. And in fact, if they're buying online, they're going to want to know probably about your portfolio, about who you are, what's your vision, and they want to know everything about the artwork. And don't underestimate the about me, your CV, your artist statement, the first impression. People care about that. You'd be surprised at statistics of how many people go on about a section on a webpage, even for a shop, a local shop. People are interested. Who's behind it? Why are they doing this? Why am I interested? Why is it interesting? If you're a geek, as I am, you could discover the power of data and make Google your very best friend. Google is complex, but data is very powerful. So I just recommend taking a basic tutorial on Google Analytics. You can get that anywhere, doesn't cost much. You probably can get it at the university. So that's a great way to get started. And remember that you're always going to own your own website and gallery and your own social media accounts. But when you start getting traction, I really recommend seeking help from experts. There are a lot of specialties within digital marketing. And in the beginning, you just kind of touch and feel everything. But later, if you start to feel like you really want to go all in, try to surround yourselves by experts. And in the end, it's just do what makes you feel good. And the best advice is just to start experimental, trial and error. If something works, go for it. If something is not working the way you want it, drop it and try something else. And that way you just continue and you will learn a lot and you will move forward. We can't see so much here. I just wanted to give you an idea of different Instagram accounts from, these are institutions, these are museums and galleries around the world, to give you an idea how, if you just pick your top 10 and you start looking at them, you'll notice that they all have like similarities and differences. Look at the best and pick what you like and apply it to your own gallery. You can see here the tone is very different from one account to the other. What's written in the bio is very different. How the highlights are constructed is very different. What website are they showcasing in the bio? Yeah, look around and get inspired. Gregory asked me to answer the question, how do we get more followers? That's a really good question. It's kind of the question everyone's trying to crack. It's the gold mine. A few tips. Owning your own voice. As I mentioned, just be yourself, authentic, bold, and creative. Don't be afraid. Just as long as it shines who you are, your work, it's going to be great. Share your story. I've seen a lot of artists doing live streams, giving updates on their ongoing projects, allowing for studio visits, even during this pandemic online. These are really popular. Insta stories are extremely popular. Use the stories. They are very powerful. But just share whatever you feel comfortable with sharing, but this is engaging for people. People want to visit the studio, but they can't right now. So take advantage of that opportunity. Create your own. If you can't see what you want, just do it yourself. Start up a project with some colleagues. There's a lot of self-run projects in Collective, and the beauty in them is that you can self-promote them as well. And you can leverage everyone who is involved, all their networks. And as I did with Opposite Wall, try to think sometimes in terms of project or collection. That way you give a momentum and it kind of feels like you're creating something new. It makes it exciting. Just try to make it exciting. Diversify your platforms, yeah, shop around and find the best communities, the best platforms for you. They might be very different from one individual to the other. There's not one right answer for this, but the important is that if you commit, keep it flowing and make sure that you're sharing and you're helping others and you're constantly working with others. Make a list of everyone you admire for whatever reason, pick 3 to 10 and try to put words as to what you like about the account and what you don't like. And that will guide you into the kind of tone and voice and color you want to have for your own gallery. Get inspired, and I say follow, watch, and learn. You don't know which hashtag to use, copy some hashtags from someone who is doing it really well. You don't have to reinvent the wheel on those things. A really good strategy that a lot of people underestimate is what I call the piggyback. And it's about interacting with other artists or other institutions who are much more established or bigger than you are. And don't be afraid to contact them. Tell them you admire them, reach out to them. And if you can collaborate or participate in something with them, just go for it. Any kind of collaboration with someone who has more followers than you is going to bring you a lot of new followers. That is one strategy that a lot of influencers use on Instagram and on other social media. Be a curator as well. So remember to share with others, help each other grow, and don't be afraid to ask. It's really growth really doesn't come alone. It comes as a collective. So the more you engage, the more you're going to leverage the network. And I think that was it for like my formal presentation. I hope it wasn't too long. And I wanted to invite Michael back in here. And hi, Michael.
Hi, Anne. Hi.
Did you learn anything?
I learned a lot and humbled, Anne, by your experiences and the presentation. And when we talked before about how this would go and what would be useful for the conversation, what I thought I'd share and from the great advice and experience that Anne's given is some experiences that I have from real world companies and how they're turning from the non-digital to the digital world and how effective it's been. So I'm going to give you sort of 3 real examples that we're working with here in Nova Scotia that are global in reach. So the first is personal to me, that I run a team of about 20 plus people in the organization, and every year we do a Christmas party of some description to get people together and sort of the normal office thing. This year was very different. We couldn't do that, and we wanted to celebrate the fact that we had got through the year and it was a difficult year, so we wanted to do something. So we had a digital art evening. So we got together all through Zoom, and we had an artist teach us how to paint a Christmas scene for us. And before we did it, there was a lot of hesitation and sort of, what's it going to be like? And I can't paint and I can't do this. Well, it was an incredible evening, 2 hours. The results were not important, but they were fantastic for everybody. Really, people surprised themselves. But I think what's more important, the artist who was not based here, they were based in the United States. She was an artist pre-COVID in a gallery. Then she became a digital teacher. And as a result of the digital teaching, she now had a digital gallery, and she was taking commissions from people that she'd never met or had never seen her work. And again, it's a lot reinforces what Anne talks about. She captured everybody's email that she was teaching. She made email communications. She updated what she was working on, etc. So I think it's a really interesting lesson on how quickly what we think of this physical world changed and became very powerful for her. And as I speak to her, and she's one of many artists that do this platform, her revenue, her personal income has gone up exponentially in ways that she'd never imagined because of her reach is there. She's got friends all over the world now. And I think that's a really, again, reinforces the message that Anne had put together. The network is so important, and you have so much reach in a digital world. So I think that's really a great example of something that pivoted really quickly. At the same time, we're currently working with an organization that wants to set up here in Nova Scotia, and they're digital tourists. They are digital guides around the world who you sign up for their trip, you pay them by a tip, whatever you feel like doing. And there's a lot of those platforms, but now these platforms are evolving and the speed of which they're evolving. So now there are digital art gallery trips. So you can, we may not be able to travel to the places where we can get inspiration by being there and physically seeing these beautiful works of art or architecture or whatever that we want to see, but we can have people do it for us, and it is very close to being, as good as. And I think when we're looking for inspiration and we want to join those curated trips, these are really, really incredible opportunities that have come up to us in the digital world. So I think these are things, and to put that in context for you, there are people that are never going to travel because of ill health. So it's not just the travel because we can't because of COVID. There are people that are now experiencing pottery locations in Japan who can't travel. They're too ill to travel. They might be in a situation where they have a bucket list and they're never going to be able to materialize or to realize that. Digital has given them that opportunity to do that. We can leverage that and create our own experiences and create experiences for other people. I think the third experience that I want to share, again here for us, is when we think about our own community and what happened. And my background here is the waterfront in Halifax, and the tourism and the cruise ship that you can see there. We don't have that. We're not going to have it this year. We didn't have it last year. And because of that, there are businesses that are no longer with us. I think of Nova Scotia Crystal. And if you think of the artists that created the crystal on the waterfront, how wonderful would it have been to be able to create that into a digital experience so people could still have seen the blowing of the crystal, could interact with the artists who made the crystal. Didn't work for Nova Scotia Crystal because they didn't pivot in time. But I think it's a lesson for all of us that doesn't matter what your art or craft is, the opportunity to interact globally is something that we should all take advantage of. Use the tools that Anne shared in terms of how do you network. It's the same as marketers have been doing forever, whether it was in a physical, pictorial, campaign-led business, whether it's on TV media, printed media, or on the internet. It's all about that engagement and that freshness. So, Anne talked about how do you keep yourself relevant? Plot a journey. Where are you going? People want to come on that journey with you. So thematic. What's your theme? What's your theme for this week, this month, this quarter? How do you keep that fresh? How do you engage with those audience? So I think moving forward is always, people want to be on that journey with you, and you'll find that audience through interacting. And we use in the commercial world sort of, you need 1,000 suspects to get 100 prospects to get 10 customers. It's the digital world is so much easier to get to that sort of ratio of clients to help your business spread the world and grow exponentially. So I think that's sort of my commentary on the wonderful presentation that Anne gave and some of the experiences that we're having live in our market here today, businesses that we're working for. And there are so many people around to help you get started, to connect you to platforms, to connect you to strategies. And I think, just ask, and there are people that want to help you get there. And anything to add to that?
Yeah, I really liked your thinking when you were mentioning the fact that people have access to everyone around the world. When I was in Japan, we did a firing on Zoom, and there were people from all around Japan who were following that firing, over 100 people, and they had the camera on Zoom, and the camera was the firing lasted for 10 days, and there were certain sessions on Twitter, on chat Twitter and on the camera, where people could interact and ask questions directly to the artists, like, tell me about this. And a lot of them were actually collectors. Maybe they had a piece in the kiln that was being fired as we speak, and they were just interested and wanted to follow a little bit the process. Or they were just curious, how does this work? What's the heat? How long is this happening for? And how long have you been doing this? And who built this kiln? And things like that. And it was really, really a fun session. And I encourage everyone to do these kind of studio visits or studio experiences, where another artist was also in collaboration with a gallery doing some live pieces. So people pre-ordering some pottery pieces. And then it was being made live, being filmed and made live. And it's really fun. You can be really creative about that if you're trying to sell some art online. I have some, Gregory, I think I mentioned, I have a cheat sheet with a lot of tips and resources that you guys could look at. For some kind of reason, that slide did not appear. It got deleted, but I will get it for you. It's basically a sheet with all those resources. Where do you find a good app for video? Where do you find a good app for photo? What's the best app for email marketing? I wasn't going to go into detail anyways with it, so I don't know if it's possible to send it afterwards to the participants.
Sure, you can do that. Actually, if you want, you can kind of give us a couple of examples, like 2 or 3, before we start with questions.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I always tell is that your best tool is your phone. So many things can be done on the phone. There's so many apps for video and audio, podcasting, photo, editing your photos that allow you to create even more creative content, or just to make it easier so you don't have to spend so much time. You can even have apps to manage your calendar so that you don't miss that exhibit. You don't miss that fun story, because you're actually there. You don't have time to manage it. You can actually plan it in advance. Great apps for email that are free is MailChimp. I always recommend that one. I also, there's a series of marketplaces that are really interesting, where you can even potentially showcase your art also through a marketplace. It's good to diversify. It's good to have your own gallery, but it's also always good to engage with other marketplaces. Some other examples, because I don't have it right in front of me. Maybe we could answer some questions regarding that. If people ask me,
we're gonna go to the questions right now, and I'm glad you mentioned that online presence. And even when I read a couple of reports from I think it was UNESCO. Now people are talking about e-culture. Like literally a transformation. I think what COVID did was literally to accelerate the process, but I think it was coming, that e-culture aspect of things. And I think this is one of the the initiatives we plan to implement by the end of the year, like that online. We talked about it last time on Bilodeau, that online platform. Right, for our students and alumni to literally to share their talent, to have more exposure to the world, because now you don't have a storefront anymore. You have a storefront, to the world, right? Not just like one street or one corner, but you have it to the world, right? So it's quite interesting, to go over those I'll say strategies and tools. So let's start with the first question. Any tips to stay fresh, encouraged through social media fatigue?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? Any tips to
stay fresh and encouraged through social media fatigue? Sometimes can be very overwhelming to have, not only Instagram, TikTok now, and every day it's something else, right? So how do you manage such a kind of like overwhelming burden? I'll say sometimes too much information. How do you get through this?
I mean, I guess that's like That's like personal managing practices, but I think a lot of people experience that. So I really get that. I think one of the tips is to dedicate a certain amount of time every day and then you just let go of it. So you don't have to be on your social media all the time. You can just be there like once a day, 30 minutes. You won't be missing out on everything. There's no point in watching all of the stories that everybody's doing. I mean, there's way too many stories. If you open TikTok, I mean, you can spend hours on that. It's so entertaining. So it's about discipline, I guess. That's one thing. And another thing is that I recommend to choose one media and that's why I was saying, try to find your voice and try to find who's your audience is or who you would like your audience to be, because then find the media that represents best your audience. Is it Facebook? Is it Instagram? Is it online? Is it TikTok? Where do you feel where you can reach out to them best? And maybe focus only on that one to start with. You don't have to be on 10 social media platforms. I mean, you could always just reserve them with your name and, be inactive. That's fine. Keep it simple and choose one to start with. And I think the most important thing with digital is always like, try one thing. Is it working for you? Continue. Is it not working for you? Change something or try something else. But it's kind of this kind of path of least resistance. What's easy and what's working for you, continue. And so that's one thing. And then the other thing are those social media apps management, because being live when there's something happening and having to post a post under pressure with text and hashtags, and sometimes you got to be strategic with those hashtags, and you want to think, oh, who am I tagging now, and then you forget. It's a little bit like you win a prize, you come on stage, you didn't prepare your memo, you don't remember who to thank. Working under pressure like that never really worked for anyone. So one idea could be to use those content tools and set yourself, say you want to do one post a week on a regular basis, be consistent. You prepare that one post a week. And that one is well thought of, is well done. You put in that calendar and it's just going to release itself at the time of your choice whenever you want, and you don't have to think about it. And then you can have, on top of that, you can have some more spontaneous engagement with your fans. But it's good to have that base and choose. I mean, there's no right or wrong. I mean, you could just be once a week, could be 3 times a week, could be once every 2 weeks, but set yourself a calendar and be like, okay, like here I am, and prepare it in advance. And that relieves a lot of the stress. It's incredible.
Yeah.
And I think the corollary to that is your audience, once you get that timbre going and sort of that routine, your audience loves that discipline as well, and they'll know, okay, it's Tuesday, Anne-Mathilde is posting, I got to be there, and you create this sort of anticipation as well.
You show that you care. Yeah, you show that you care, that you're interested in them, and they like that.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that working under pressure has never worked for anyone. I remember my first job interview when, it was a big thing way back then when people say, well, can you work under pressure? My first job interview, when they asked me that question, I said, I always try not to be in that position.
Exactly.
Good answer.
It's not laughing.
There's always going to be things happening. There's always going to be spontaneity, and there's always going to be things you have to respond to right away. But then you have the time and the energy to do it because the rest is under control.
Yeah.
Sounds so great, right?
Yeah. Not to be in that position.
But a lot of small companies, when they start doing that, it relieves a lot of pressure on the marketing people.
Yeah, big time. We have a second question. What are your favorite applications for contact creation?
Well, that was the cheat list. Cheat list
Yeah.
I wanted to share, but the slide disappeared. So I think do we have the contact, everybody? Can we send that?
But I don't know whether there is a difference between basically, let's say, content creation and kind of other social type of,
It's very large, content creation. I mean, are we talking about, there's video, there's photo, there's email, there is creation. There's like finding the best hashtags. There's a lot of different apps. Depends kind of what you want to do. Do we have some specifics or?
No, I don't know whether.
So for example, for photo, I love to use, I have Lightroom on my mobile, but one of the, you could use also Adobe Spark, you could use VSCO, you could use all kinds. And for video, there's several apps for videos, and for audio, there's also some apps for audio. I recommend Adobe Suite is pretty good also on the mobile, and different niche apps for that. But I'm willing to share them as soon as I have the document up. if the person wants to be more specific about the type of content, then maybe we can talk
Okay,
about it.
maybe the person can actually feel free to get back to us. We have a third one. Let's talk metrics. What are you looking at in terms of numbers? What is most valuable to gauge?
So metrics are really important, and I didn't talk about it because it's kind of the next step. But once you start working your marketing, it goes together with your goals. So what are your goals? And then you're trying to see, okay, so how do I know if in X month from now I've actually reached my goals? But the beauty with digital is that you can actually measure some of them, which you couldn't before with traditional, well, with maybe traditional marketing, you can measure that. So some of the goals could be, for example, could be anything. So it could be how many people follow you. It could be the engagement rate on social media. If you have a web page, how many visitors come? How long do they stay on your web page? How many pages do they look at? If you have a shop, of course, the number one metric is how many people that come on your website actually purchase something. For how much do they purchase? Do they purchase one thing, two things? If you're selling ceramics, are they purchasing 3 at a time or 1? What else could it be? Yeah, a metric could be anything, basically, as long as it's measuring your goal. So if your goal is, I want to increase my visibility, then think in terms of visibility. What measures visibility? Numbers of followers, for example, numbers of visitors on your page, that's visibility. If your goal is, I want to make more money, then you're talking about conversion and how much money in each basket or transaction that's happening. Right. If you're thinking about you want to be more profitable, then definitely you're looking at the average basket because every transaction has a cost. So it could be anything, but basically you want to know, you want as many people as possible to come visit you. That's
and the key there,
one metric. As many people as possible, because statistically, the more you have, the more there's a chance that somebody will engage, somebody will buy something. And then you also want to see if they stay there, because if they bounce right back, maybe it was a mistake. They didn't see what they were looking for, or maybe it wasn't interesting for them. So maybe you're not talking to the right people.
Mm-hmm.
And always count unique visitors, right? So it's not the number, it's the number of unique visitors. Many people.
Oh yeah, thanks, Michael.
They count 100 views or 100 visits, but it's the same person 100 times. That doesn't count, right?
Right. And I think one thing too, it's during the sale process. When you talk about conversion, that's an excellent point, the conversion rate. But I was thinking about repeating customers to see whether, the line of products you're selling, whether it's something that is appealing or whether it's just like one kind of one item.
Down the road, the repeating customers down the road. But definitely down the road. But I would say that your first mission is to get as many people as interested as possible, because statistically, the more you get on board, and then get their email.
Okay. There is another question I have. Yeah. There is a question I have. I think, well, I talk a lot about it personally. And how do you decide which social media platforms to be on? That's I think it's these are very great questions. So far.
I don't know, Michael, what you think about that, but I one of the things that I think about that is you have to pick the social media where your audience is, because there are differences. So try to imagine who's your audience, and then imagine where they are, and then you have to feel comfortable also on that platform. So it's a mix and match. It's like dating, you have to find the perfect fit, but mainly it's who they are. Do you cater to a younger crowd? Do you cater to an older crowd?
What's your crossover bridge? What each platform has a different type of voice, and you have to, you might be viable on multiple platforms. You might have to adapt for that. The great thing about these platforms is the ability to test a different, we call it A/B testing, but different types of testing and different approaches to see what works for you. It's incredibly inexpensive to do so. But again, that ties back into the data. Learn what testing without metrics is not testing.
Right.
It's playing.
So the Google Analytics I was referring to earlier, if you're really interested in that and you're really curious about that, that's a great tool because it's not that complicated to open a Google Analytics account and link it to your website, for example. And then it's possible to see where people are coming from. And that's the first thing I do when I start working with a client, and as I look at that dashboard, because say you have 100 visitors, whatever, and 60 are coming from Instagram, then you know right away that there's already people, and you know that Instagram right off the bat is probably your preferred medium. It doesn't mean it's the only one, doesn't mean it's the best one, but there's something that works. Again, go with the path of least resistance and then try working that media right away. And then I would put the other ones aside a little bit because naturally there's something there. There's a good connection. So work on it.
So that's a great point. And until we're working with a company called Wattpad. Wattpad is a content creation platform for authors, for writing, creative writing, and they had raised millions of dollars. They had this platform, and until they analyzed their data, they didn't know that their audience was 14 to 18-year-old females globally. A lot coming from Asia, and that made them pivot their business. They now have 120 million subscribers in that 14 to 18 range for their content platform, and they've pivoted, and that's exactly the market they address to. They've just sold for in excess of $600-700 million in a relatively short period of time, and it's all about the creative platform of writing. It's a really interesting example where data drove the business in a direction that's not what the founders set the company up to do. I think there's a couple of great questions about a visual artist who started an online shop as part of the website. I don't know if
right. The next one I have, it's how do you approach someone for partnership? How do you approach someone for partnership?
What sort of partnership do you think we're talking
Probably,
about?
I think if I can if I can guess right, I think it's basically business partnership or maybe for.
So I think, and Mathilde talked about relationships and dating. So a business partnership is what's in it for me, what's in it for you, right?
It is.
And you have to do the research and find out why, you know, what makes that work, right? And I think doing that research, having that discussion with yourself, it comes back to the why. Why would this person want to partner with me? What do I want from the partnership? And Mathilde, I used your analogy, but I think it's a great analogy for that, right?
It is.
I agree. What's in it for them? What's in it for me? And I think if you can answer what's in it for them, you've already got a really good approach line. And so how do you target but like Michael's right, you have to research the person that you're pitching to.
Yeah, character matters.
Then I don't know, Michael, what do you think about that? You've done so much business, and also probably try to find out who's the person that takes decisions in that organization. You don't want to talk to a person who's not interested in hearing from you. So try to find out who's involved, and you can ask. You can just ask.
Yeah, nobody minds a direct question. There's been a question for a while that on the Q&A on the site, and I don't want to lose sight of it because it came in a while ago.
Right. Which one?
I'm a visual artist who just started an online shop as part of their website.
Okay.
Did I remove paintings from the shop that haven't sold after a certain amount of time?
Right.
I'm afraid it looks bad to have them sat there for a while.
Yeah, that's the next one we have. Yeah, okay. That's the next one we have because we taken by other from first come first served. So that's the next one. The next one is the one Michael just said. I'm a visual artist and who just started an online shop as part of my website. Should I remove painting from the shop if they haven't sold after a certain amount of time? I'm afraid it looks bad to have work, sitting around for a while, but I also want them to be accessible to new collectors.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I don't think you should necessarily, there's many different perspectives on this. I don't see it as a problem that your work is there. It's part of your portfolio. It shows who you are and the work that you do. Maybe one approach could be to select the ones that you're most proud of, that you think represent better your portfolio, and find the right balance between your new work and the old work. But I wouldn't remove it entirely. And you can also, potentially, you could also shuffle some of it. You know, you can hide it on your shop without removing it never remove it permanently. You can just kind of click that button that says like don't display or hide. But I would definitely keep your old work. I mean, your portfolio is important. When people shop online, they want to see an artist's portfolio, because how else, if they can't go to the studio in person, how else are they going to know kind of what that person has been doing? So I think it's really important you show that, because especially we can't travel, we can't go somewhere. It represents who you are and your line of work. So I think it's very powerful. It's more like if you're feeling that it's not like fresh and it's bothering you, then shuffle it around. You can also kind of, like a gallery, you could, you know, remove some temporarily, put some new ones up front. You can think about it like you're merchandising a shop. They're always going to be there, but maybe you want to showcase some, maybe 3 of them are your best works. You put them up. When people come on a web page, the first thing they see is the first, you know, three pieces or 9 pieces. And then that's where you work. You put what you're most proud of, what you think is most dynamic, and put some dynamic stuff there. And then you can also potentially, the stuff can stay on the website. You could also make some collections where you showcase your new work forward, and you still have the rest, you move it to your portfolio, or it could be different things. There's different ways of doing it. It's a really good question. It's something, yeah, ask around, try different things.
And,
I agree.
and sometimes, you know, marketing, it's about sales, right? But sometimes you need to, pardon my French, you need to sometimes BS your way, you know, to sell. When you have stuff like that, you cannot sell. You can put them on section. You call it vintage, or you call it classics, or whatever it is. Like
or your portfolio.
Yeah, exactly, right. I mean, because when I'm saying that, I'm thinking about Adidas a long time ago when they had the Stan Smith, right? For those who are kind of 40, you know, and something, we grew up with Stan Smith, and he died off and came back. New millennials, they didn't know their dad used to wear that, you know, those shoes, right? It was a classic, right? So I would say keep it and put it on some special section,
merchandising,
right? And exactly, yeah. But you keep it, because a piece of art is a piece of art, right? It's not some sort of season collections, right? Leave it, right?
And remember that, you know, in a gallery, if you're there, the people come in and ask you about your perspective on the picture, and you'll tell them the story of why you created it, what it moved you to do that. Add that to your art as well. Take the time to tell the story of each piece.
Yes,
we have a
so
two-dimensional medium. Add that different dimension to it. I think it's, you know, humanize it for them.
In my class, I say not only humanize the art. In my class, that's what I say to them. You have to have a story attached to it that can prevent people from copycatting.
Yeah.
Right? Because immediately you give a story to, you know, to a frame, to whatever you're choosing, you're doing, very rarely you're gonna have someone try to literally to emulate, to copy the same thing without having a story to back it up. Right? The form, you actually can explain why it was designed like this, have a story next to it. I think that can more or less protect you against, you know, copyright infringement or something.
It also creates a lot of value, I think, to explain the work.
Yeah.
Why was it made? How is it made? When was it made? What's the medium? What's the philosophy behind it? It really adds a lot of value.
Yeah, enhance the experience.
Again, when people are shopping online, they're not seeing things the way, they can't touch and feel. They can't kind of smell it. They can't see it the way you would do it when you walk in a gallery. So we need a context. You know, we need to imagine. We need the details about it, and it can stay factual. It can be storytelling, or it can also be very simple, but still, like it's about telling everything you want to tell about that piece of work.
Yeah, it's an experience. You're offering an experience. I have another question. I am a visual artist, and I was told by a gallery to stay off social media as it results in comparison and threatens my ability to remain authentic. They were very adamant that as a visual artist, it is imperative to work in partnership with a brick and mortar gallery with respect to my artistic reputation. So what is your take on this?
My take is that the gallerist has a point. The gallerist does play an important role in the art world, and it's not to be neglected. That's certain. I think that's true. I just think that it can be difficult in the beginning of your career to be represented by a gallery, and that should not prevent you from trying to gain your own visibility and your own follower. And when it comes to, so I don't know if that answers that part of the question. Yes, the gallerists, they have a reputation and they play an important role, and they can help you build your career, definitely. And I don't think one excludes the other. And yes, it's a sensitive matter because kind of everybody's on the social media. Everybody's kind of competing for visibility and space and voice. But I think it's still possible to have your own voice, and that's kind of up to you to make that decision. Really, there is no right and wrong. It's really in those art examples I showed in my presentation. Some artists there had a huge success by branding themselves. It's their own choice. Some people will criticize it, but they're having a successful career. So it's really up to you to see, where do you draw the line? Where do you feel comfortable? And yes, a gallerist is an important partner in building your career, but I still think you can do both parallel. I mean, right. I think you're also helping the gallerist. If you build your own following, and if you learn to express yourself and develop, express your content, and you enjoy that and it's working for you, it's an advantage also. But in the end of the day, the gallerist will mainly look at your CV, your portfolio, your more traditional professional path, but it doesn't have to be incompatible with you shining your own light on your either personal or professional social media. And then it's a matter of taste, and it's a matter of opinion, and a lot of people differ on that opinion. You have to, right. There's no right or wrong. You kind of have to make that call yourself. So that's
and for some we can say too, for some for some art piece that can be social media. For the other one, that can be a traditional venue, right? It's
and of course if you have an agreement with the gallerist, you have to agree on that. The pieces that are at the gallerist, maybe you can't promote those, but you can promote your other pieces of work,
right?
I mean, there's all kinds of ways to earn a living and showcase your visibility. And I think you should talk to your peers and follow your own instinct when it comes to that. But I see a lot of artists that have their own page as well. And they help promote the work of their own gallerists. So if they help promote the gallerists help promote them, they help promote their peers. We all have to promote everyone. It's a fine line, but it's possible to do it all in a way.
Yeah, it's part of this unsettling.
Right.
It's part of the transitioning economy that we're at, that sort of where everyone in the old economy, everyone was defined roles on where they sat, and we've, for a whole host of reasons, we've been sort of transcended into this mix, and people are still trying to find their own way. So I totally agree with you there, Anne-Mathilde. There's one does not exclude the other. Communication is key. Telling the gallery what you're doing and being upfront and sharing. I don't think there's a right or a wrong way. I think it's finding your way that's important.
Right.
And some gallerists would agree and others don't. And then maybe you have to find the right gallerist for you that shares your vision also on the matter. There's many different takes on it.
Yes. Yeah. And you're right. And that's what business is about too, right? Business, it's not almost like an exact science, right? There's a lot of stuff that will make sense to you and some won't.
Yeah.
And you cannot say, yes, I'm going with Instagram and Instagram is the way to go and forever. This is not physics. This is not chemistry, right? Mm-hmm. So, and that's why I usually say I would probably trust a creative mind better as to be an entrepreneur than an engineer because of the flexibility of the creativity, right? So, like you just mentioned, there's no one way to do it. It really depends on the context, the timing. And I have a question that literally escaped me earlier, Michael. One question for Michael. In a saturated market like tourism, how do you stand out?
Oh. Tourism is the market tourism.
Yes, but yeah.
So not an area that I'm an expert in. If it's referring to what I talked about in terms of the tourism, the digital tourist, I think there's platforms. The great thing about digital media, there are slices for everybody. And I'll quote somebody who's in our local community who was teaching me about podcasting. And he said, the interesting thing about podcast, television and the internet is broadcast, where podcast is narrowcast. If you want to create a podcast about knitting with purple wool, you'll find the community of people who are interested in knitting with purple wool. I think that the same is true with the digital, the social platforms and again, tourism. If my oldest daughter is a environmentalist and animal rights, and she's, for the last 7 years, she's spent 2 months in the wilds of Montana monitoring and recording and filming this herd of the oldest herd of Mustangs in the United States, the prior Mustangs. It's a very small audience that are interested in that, yet she's selling photo books and she's got following on her website. So I think people find the lanes because it's so accessible out there now. And I think with tourism and that digital tourism, if I'm answering the question correctly, it is, the more specific you can get, the more sort of genuine followers that you'll have that are genuinely interested in you want to do, right? We had in this company that we're talking to, somebody's bucket list who unfortunately was not going to be able to make, the trip, wanted to fly over a volcano. So they paid this digital guide to hire a helicopter to fly over a volcano. The next thing they know, they had 56 people signed up for this tour to fly over this specific volcano. So I think the great thing is you can satisfy a very specific need on digital, but you can also share that you're doing that very specific need and get like-minded audience and have that connection through that event. So I think there's, if that's answering the question, I'm not sure if that was where it was going. That's where my mind took the question.
Yeah. Anne Bilodeau, any comment?
I think no, I think Michael, you're just wrapping it so well. I don't really have anything to add. I think it's great.
Yeah, I think
what I witnessed in tourism when I was traveling is a lot of galleries rely on tourism because they're a destination and they're part of an environment, and they showcase, basically they're like a one-stop shop for local artists. So it's tourism. Tourists love that because they come there and then they have access to national, regional, or local artists. And I think it's definitely a challenge now with the pandemic. And I think I was basically consulting with some artists in Japan, where it's just a small business case I can share here. They had a gallery, a fine art gallery, and they were doing art fairs around the world, which were stopped with the pandemic, and selling pieces that were ranging, between $800 and $10,000. And then they also had a local tourism organization selling gifts and souvenirs, and we're talking about pottery here. And then the big question was, what do we do now? We don't have as much tourism. We want to promote it online, but it was all together on one website. And in the end, it was kind of the solution was really to break up those two websites. So to have one website where you really have this virtual gallery, and they had these invitations to these events where they're inviting collectors from abroad, basically on a specific time, to come and visit an exhibition. So they were still doing exhibitions virtually, calling them out and inviting people to come in, and they even had a bidding system online. And then they're running the gallery as they always have. It's just that they're doing their launch virtually. And then they run the tourism business separately. And then they had to really push the local market. They were pushing the local market. So instead of pushing it to all the foreigners that were coming, they were pushing it to Japanese tourists. And focusing on that. And I think that was a smart idea, because maybe there are fewer international tourists, but now there are more local tourists.
Right.
So there's an opportunity there as well.
Right. Thank you. I think we're going with the last one. And regarding content, because we're running out of time, regarding content, would you discourage having different content, cooking, fiber art, plant, all on one platform account? I am a jack of all trades, and I'm having problems focusing all on one type of content. What is your opinion, and how should I move forward?
Can you just repeat those different types of content?
Cooking, I think fiber art, plant, and all on one platform.
That's a really good question. I mean, is that who you are? Does that represent you? If it represents you and what you are, I mean, it's going to be hard to dissociate it. That you could try. It could also be fun that you're kind of a jack of all trades. I mean, that's also fun. You should maybe embrace it and accept it, and capitalize on that. That's what makes you maybe unique. That you get your creativity from all kinds of sources, and that you have all these channels to channel it through. But I mean, if you're not comfortable with that, then I guess you could pick one and go with that one only, or pick two. But of course, having several, it's going to be so time consuming. I don't know if I recommend. I think having like two accounts. A lot of creative entrepreneurs have like different businesses. They'll have two accounts, maximum three, but then it's a lot of work. So I don't know. One other idea could be if you have an Instagram account, is to use the highlights. So you create all this content on one place, but you try to choose a channel where you can organize it. So if you create all these videos and stories and posts, you could maybe post it and then you organize them in the highlights. So you have a highlight that's called cooking, one that's called fiber art, and one that's called, and that way you kind of like, for someone who's visiting your store, they can go straight into what is interesting for them. If you have a YouTube channel, same, you could divide your YouTube channel, put all your contact there, and then put all of your specialties, because in a way, it's who you are. I mean, you can create different accounts, and then you'll link them all together. And some people do that. I mean, in the end of the day, again, there's no right or wrong. I really believe that both options are good. You can have like three different accounts and three visions and three practices and three contents, and they all link together, but you have to like to manage that. Or you can have everything under one umbrella, and then you just kind of like organize it.
I'm just going to take a slightly different.
Think, Michael?
Yeah, I'm going to take a slightly different spin. I just everything you say, I think is bang on. But when I read the question, what I'm seeing is that the artist is the art, and that maybe the platform should be about the artist, and this is my portfolio, so that you're not trying to manage or focus on one thing. You're focusing on you, and as Anne-Mathilde said, that this is who you are. And I think that's what will engage with people, not about I'm dividing myself into 1/3 of me or however many, but to make you the platform, to make you, and to focus on you, the artist, about the breadth of things that you do. And I think that might just be a different way of saying, I don't have to manage at 3 different platforms and try and divide my time. It could be liberating for you to think in that terms.
Definitely. And on that, Michael, I totally agree. I mean, I'm just recommending it. Some people like that. Some people like to categorize these things, but it is very time consuming. And I think you should embrace who you are and your whole artistic practice. And like Michael says, focus on your lifestyle, your studio. I mean, how exciting is it to come into a studio of a person who does so many different things? In the end, they're all kind of intertwined. And I think that's fascinating. So just welcome people into your universe, your world. And maybe it's chaotic, but maybe that's what's fun. And maybe people will love it.
Right. So I think that's it for today. Thank you very much, Anne-Mathilde. Thank you very much, Michael, for for being here to share your experience, share your expertise. I think the audience really liked it. We have other questions, but unfortunately, we're gonna need to go because we're going out of time. So thank you everyone for being here today. And I will strongly suggest that you fill up our survey so we can better serve you. Please, we will really appreciate your feedback on this. And please be with us next week. Next week, we're going to go over the creative industry and some strategic partners such as incubators and government-sponsored development agencies. So please join us next week. And once again, thank you very much, Michael. Thank you very much, Anne-Mathilde. Really appreciate this. Really appreciate your time today. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
And
Michael. It was
have a great day.
lovely to have you here, and Greg for inviting us over. Thanks to everyone. Wish I could see all of your faces. I can't. I hope it was interesting. Good luck.
Right.
To everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very
Bye-bye.
much. Bye.